Good afternoon. I'm Dara Rose, and I'm talking from the Wallace Foundation. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar that will explore the problem of summer learning loss, or summer slide, and the role that statewide after-school networks, policymakers at the district and state level, and others can play in reducing this loss in the context of year-round learning. We're delighted that so many of you from 43 states, D.C., Puerto Rico, British Columbia, and the Arab Emirates have voiced interest in this topic and joined us for today's discussion. The problem of summer learning loss has been well documented for a century, yet summer learning often remains at the bottom of a long list of district and school priorities, particularly now because of budget pressures. Even so, today there's growing recognition of the problem of summer learning loss and its role in the achievement gap. There's also mounting concern over issues of physical health, safety, and general well-being that can be acute in the summer months when low-income students in urban areas are often deprived not only well-supervised enriched learning opportunities, but healthy meals and physical activity. In this context, public, private, and nonprofit sector leadership are showing a growing interest in what takes place over the summer months for our most disadvantaged kids. And there's also an increased understanding of the potential solutions for this problem. The depth of experience and diversity of people participating in today's webinar is illustrative of this growing interest. Registrants vary from practitioners like a teacher in Scottsdale, Arizona, to the Director of Education Services for Catholic Charities in New Orleans, to key municipal staff like mayoral directors of education and service coordinators for local housing authorities and public libraries, to private foundations and 21st century community learning center directors in states across the country. Wallace is among this growing group that has signaled a commitment to stemming summer learning loss. We're currently investing in a number of leading national summer learning providers and have initiated a research demonstration project involving 6 urban school districts, selected because they are leaders who initiated summer learning programs prior to Wallace investment. This demonstration project will help the education sector better understand whether students who attend 2 consecutive summers of summer learning programs reach academic gains that last for multiple years. To shed light on both the challenges of improving learning opportunities for children in the summer and promising solutions, we have assembled a terrific group of experts. Jennifer Sloan McCombs, a senior policy researcher at the RAND Corporation, will summarize findings from a new study she co-authored, commissioned by the Wallace Foundation, entitled Making Summer Count. And we've also have with us today representatives of statewide after-school networks in York, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. They will describe the steps they're taking to create supportive policy environments for summer learning. These after-school networks, as well as 37 others, are supported by the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, and they play key roles in sharing knowledge, building support, and in engaging both after-school providers and policymakers, both of whom are critical in the provision of summer learning opportunities. The network's insights on policy will be complemented by examples of innovations on the ground. We'll hear from a mix of district staff who lead expanded learning in Rochester and Providence, and the leader of a nonprofit intermediary organization in Boston. While there's much that will be said about recent research findings and the intersections of policy and practice, of course, all of our panelists are very much looking forward to hearing from you through the questions that you pose. I'll spend now a few minutes talking about housekeeping. For those of you who are new to GoToWebinar.com, here's a few tips. As you can see, the GoToWebinar control pane is on the right-hand side of your screen. The control panel contains panes that can be expanded or collapsed by clicking the plus or minus buttons found on the left side of each pane. We have approximately 520 people registered for this webinar, so due to the large number, all attendees have been muted. However, we do want to hear from you, and since webinar technology is interactive, I encourage you to submit questions to our presenters at any time during the presentation. We'll be monitoring the questions pane throughout the webinar. The panelists will address them during the Q&A period. please note to whom you would like me to pose your question. If you have a clarification question, we'll respond by chat message. The question box can be found in the control panel right below the polls pane. Here you will see an illustration of the question pane when it has been expanded. To submit a question, please type it in the question pane and press send. Need help? If you're having problems with the webinar, for example, if the slides don't appear to be advancing when they're supposed to, please wait a few minutes. If you see a significant delay, simply close and reopen the webinar window. This usually fixes it. If you're experiencing problems with your audio, hang up and redial. If that doesn't work, either contact GoToWebinar Help Desk, which can be found by clicking the Help tab in your control panel, or send a chat message to Eric, our in-house technology expert, and he'll try to assist you. Lastly, an online archive of this webinar will be available by the end of the week on our website, wallacefoundation.org, for you to listen to again, as well as to forward to more of your colleagues who didn't join us today. So now we'll begin the discussion that will go into 2:15 Eastern Standard Time. First, we'll get a better sense of who's participating through a series of polling questions. To answer the poll questions, please go to the poll pane in your control panel. So now we're going to be putting the first question on your screen. So we'd like to start by asking you, what is your role in your state's summer learning landscape? Are you a nonprofit provider? Are you an intermediary or an advocacy organization? Do you work for education at the state, district, or school level? Are you a funder or are you a researcher? We'll spend a few more seconds tallying up the answers. Again, please go to the poll pane on your control panel. Okay, so now we will post the answer to this question and see who we have. So almost half of you come from the nonprofit community here and probably involved in running summer programs on your own. That's wonderful, wealth of experience. We also have a mix of folks from the different categories of the question, which is wonderful since it reflects the different groups that are required to help make summer programs accessible for our children. So now we'll go to the next question. How familiar are you with current summer learning initiatives that your city or state offers to help reduce the effects of summer learning loss? We'll give you a few more seconds. If you haven't already clicked an answer, please do so. Okay, we're going to close that so we can tally the answer. Oh, so pretty split. Seems as though half of the people on today's webinar are very familiar with efforts underway, and half of you are not that familiar. That either means that there needs to be more public education and awareness of innovations going on, or there's simply not enough going on. This is not, I think, a surprising representation of the state of our field. So the last question that we'll pose is, how high a priority is summer learning in your community relative to other education efforts? Is it high, medium, a low priority, or is it not a priority at all? Okay, so we're going to close that up. So about 15% of you believe that summer learning is a high priority in your area. That's wonderful. Seems as though your cities and states are on the vanguard of this issue. About half of you say that it's a medium priority. That's quite promising. 32% though say that summer learning is a low priority, and 4% say it's not a priority whatsoever. So again, this I think aligns very well with market research we've conducted with educational leaders that say that it's really on the radar but not yet a real pressing priority. for educational reform efforts. Okay. Well, now we'll go on, and I'll pass the mic to our first speaker, Jennifer at the RAND Corporation.
Thank you, Dara. Today I'm going to provide a brief overview of key findings from our recent report, Making Summer Count. This document draws together what's known about the nature of summer learning loss, the promise of summer learning programs, the cost of summer programming, and superintendents' views about their summer learning programs. Next slide. Now, summer learning loss is a very real phenomenon, and research shows that each fall, on average, students come back to school performing about a month behind where they performed in the spring. However, not all students experience these average losses. And in fact, over the summer, middle-income students typically gain in reading, while low-income students lose significant ground. And what is particularly disturbing is that low-income students do not catch up to their higher-income peers during the school year. And these episodes of summer learning loss are cumulative over time. In fact, one localized study found that the summer learning loss accounted for about 2/3 of the achievement gap seen between low-income and higher-income students in the 9th grade. Now, we know from the research that summer learning loss has a substantial impact on student achievement and that it contributes to the achievement gap that we see between low-income students and their higher-income peers. Next slide. So, are summer learning programs a solution? Are they effective in stopping summer learning loss and improving student achievement? Now, rigorous studies of voluntary summer programs, mandatory summer programs that students must attend in order to earn promotion to the next grade, and even programs that encourage students to read at home in the summer have all been found to have positive effects on student achievement. Now, the combined evidence from these studies suggests that all of these types of summer learning programs can mitigate summer learning losses and even lead to achievement gains. Moreover, longitudinal studies conclude that the effects of summer learning programs endure for at least 2 years after the student is engaged in a summer program. Now, while these findings are quite promising, not all summer learning programs result in positive outcomes for enrollees. In fact, to be effective, summer learning programs need to be high quality, and students need to enroll and attend regularly to reap their benefits. Regarding the quality of summer programming, research points to several practices that are associated with quality and improved student achievement. Now, key among them are small class size, which promotes individualized instruction, parent involvement, which may help promote strong attendance among students and can also result in parents reinforcing skills at home. Expert opinion also points to the importance of staffing programs with high-quality instructors, aligning the school year and the summer curriculum so that they include the same type of content, and expanding content beyond remediation. Also, early planning for programs is essential for ensuring quality. Now, strong attendance is critical and a particular concern for voluntary programs. For voluntary summer learning programs, providers need to adopt targeted strategies to build enrollment and maximize attendance. Several effective strategies were offered by summer learning program staff interviewed in our study. Offering transportation and full-day programming were seen as methods of removing structural barriers that may exist for working families. Program leaders described the need to inform parents early in the year so that they can plan for summer before the end of the school year. And leaders also stressed the need to outline program content and expectations clearly to parents. Finally, program providers described methods of enticing students so that students want to and demand to attend. Strategies included some basics, such as providing tasty food, and districts and private providers also described offering engagement enrichment activities as part of full-day programs as methods of generating excitement about the program. Some districts partnered with community-based organizations to offer an array of camp-like activities, such as kayaking, swimming, drama, and arts and crafts. And leaders often felt that these activities not only improved attendance, but also help bridge the opportunity gap that exists between low-income and middle-income students during the summer. While high-quality summer learning programs can have positive effects on youth outcomes, still many districts don't offer these programs, and superintendents cite cost as a primary barrier to implementing and sustaining these types of programs. Now, the cost range for summer programs listed here are for programs with an academic and enrichment component that operate a full day, 5 days a week, for 6 weeks over the summer, and those costs are inclusive of instruction, food, facilities, and transportation. Now, in total, the daily cost of the summer program is less than the daily cost of the school day during the school year. However, this still represents an additional cost to districts who currently are cash-strapped and are not required to offer summer programming. Now, the largest driver of cost in these programs is the student-to-instructor ratio. So in part, that's linking cost to quality to some extent. Now, despite the budget pressures faced by districts, a number of them are committed to providing summer learning experiences to their students and are convinced of their own program's effectiveness. Now, these programs often offer a mix of academic instruction and enrichment, and districts have found creative ways of funding these programs, such as blending different sources of state and federal funding and developing partnerships with community-based organizations to help drive down costs. In addition, districts have adopted hiring practices to help improve the quality of summer teaching staff. For instance, Duval County examines teacher effectiveness as part of its summer learning process. And some districts report benefits of summer learning programs, including improved grade promotion and reduced retention rate, improved student achievement, and while not directly studied, many districts consider summer learning programs to be a key piece of their school turnaround and improvement efforts. Now, I'll offer an overview of a few recommendations for states, districts, and providers that emerged from the study. We encourage districts to consider partnerships when developing summer learning programs. Now, in our study, we saw benefits of districts partnering with community-based organizations, but we encourage leaders to think broadly about the resources that exist within their city. A large number of organizations within a city are interested in ensuring youth high-quality experiences during the summer and could contribute resources to this effort. We encourage districts to dedicate time for early planning. It's crucial for program success, and to give qualified staff time to develop that programming. Now, research identifies a number of promising practices that I overviewed that can be incorporated and should be incorporated into summer learning programs. And finally, district leaders in our study noted how difficult it was to braid together those multiple sources of funding, state and federal funding streams, while still meeting the regulatory requirements of each. States could really help districts by developing clear guidance on how state and federal resources can be used in their state to support summer learning programs. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. And I'd like to remind everyone that following Jen's remarks right now, as well as through the following remarks, you can submit your questions, and we'll try and address as many of them as possible during the Q&A period. As a reminder, the question box can be found in the control panel right below the polls pane. We've already started to receive some questions, so keep them coming. So now I would like to introduce our first state speakers. Sanjiv Rao, Executive Director of the New York State Afterschool Network, will speak, followed by Caterina Leone-Mannino, Director of Expanded Learning and Intervention for the Rochester City School District. Sanjiv?
Great. Thank you, Dara, and thanks to all of you for making the time to join us today. From the statewide network perspective in New York, we believe that there are some key functions that a network needs to play to support many of the points that Jennifer mentioned from the report. To start, first, we think that statewide networks need to continue to promote quality summer learning as integral to a comprehensive learning system. We can do that by supporting the widespread adoption and use of program quality frameworks and self-assessment tools and other tools that are used in the after-school world. Secondly, we also think that state networks need to play an important role as connectors that highlight exemplary summer learning programs, practices, and policies so that providers and decision makers can all have a clear sense of what's possible in terms of quality, the blending and tapping of funding streams, and planning a year-round learning agenda, as well as providing the guidance around policy and program that Jennifer talked about. Next, we also think that state networks can really support the integration of two streams of interrelated work, summer learning and summer school, because while some kids need remediation, all kids need enrichment and acceleration. And finally, we think that state networks can play an important role in encouraging in-school and out-of-school stakeholders to make summer learning a joint policy priority at local, regional, and statewide levels. So we'd certainly encourage folks to connect with the state after-school network in your state to learn about or elevate this issue. And if you're on the call from New York, please do contact us at NISAN. One place where many of these elements are evident is in the work that's happening in the Rochester City School District. And we're excited to have my colleague from Rochester, Caterina Leone-Mannino, speak about the good work that's happening there. Caterina?
Yes, hello. Good morning. Well, I want to tell you a little bit about Rochester City School District. We're one of the 5th largest districts in New York State. We have about 34,000 students. We're 11th in the nation in terms of childhood poverty. Throughout the summer, we service about a third of our students in summer enrichment programming. I'm going to speak directly about the work that we did with the Wallace demonstration project this past summer for summer enrichment programming. We serviced about 600 students transitioning from 3rd to 4th grade that were eligible for academic intervention services. For them, we provided certified teachers and paraprofessionals during the school day to provide both academic remediation in literacy and mathematics, as well as inquiry and science content to preview 4th grade concepts. Enrichment programming was provided in the afternoon through music and art integration, physical education components, health education, field experiences, and science inquiry. These 600 students worked towards an exhibition of learning at the end, which was a celebration of their summer learning and a performance of all of their enrichment activities. To do this, the City School District partnered with various community agencies, including our local City of Rochester Recreation Center and Young Audiences of Rochester, as well as our local area community foundation, which houses our Greater Rochester Afterschool Alliance, which is part of NISAN. Next slide, please. Over the summer, what we saw for the outcomes, we definitely saw increased student motivation and engagement. We measured oral reading fluency as a general outcome measure of academic performance and saw that our students either maintained or gained throughout the summer. We saw improved performance both in math and science with pre- and post-set testing, which was directly related to the content. And we are currently collecting our BMI data to show spring versus fall BMI and hopefully showing lower weight gain during the summer for students that participated in the activity. We also learned some lessons and some work that still challenges us. We needed to clarify for this next summer the role of our paraprofessionals in doing the work during the summer. We also wanted to strengthen our community partnerships. Our Rochester will be submitting a request for proposals to our community agencies to see which agencies best fit our role as a district and our needs of our students. Another one of our challenges is the incorporation of special needs students into our programming. Because of the funding streams from our IDEA funding do not cover summer learning, what we needed to do was to take some time and look at what other funding sources and what other supports we will need to put in place, and as well as simplifying the student registration process. So because we are targeting students that are struggling, how do we make sure that we do that equitably as well as by addressing the needs of the most needy students first?
Great. Thank you both, Sanjiv, for setting the stage of how we can look at this from a policy and state level lens, and Caterina for telling us about really some exciting work going on in Rochester, New York. I just want to answer 2 quick technical questions. Richard Bates from New Orleans, Young Audiences of Louisiana. Hi, Richard. And the answer is you can find a research reference throughout today's presentation by going onto our website, wallacefoundation.org. Jennifer was citing findings from the Making Summer Count publication. And from Pat Hilbron from Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, I'm glad you're finding the information helpful, and the slides will be available to everyone by the end of this week on our website as we're archiving today's webinar along with the PowerPoint deck. So now we're going to turn over to Rhode Island, a smaller state than New York, but with no less exciting innovations underway. First, we'll hear from Adam Greenman, Executive Director of the Rhode Island Afterschool Plus Alliance, RIASPA. And then after he shares some context, he'll pass the mic to Patrick Do Hon, Director of Expanded Learning for Providence Schools and the Providence Afterschool Alliance. Adam?
Thanks, Sarah. We're small, but we're feisty. And like New York, summer learning in Rhode Island is really part of a year-round strategy to address the needs of students in the hours that they are out of school. Rhode Island's really been engaged on the issue of summer learning on a policy level since 2008, both at the local level and at the state level. On the state level, the work has really focused on policy support and building consensus around the need to address summer learning loss. In 2010, the legislature convened a task force on summer learning made up of both practitioners and policymakers, led by a state senator and state representative. And the recommendations that that task force put forth led to funding legislation that is currently working its way through the Rhode Island General Assembly. Simultaneously, RIASPA, our organization, has been working on the local level to develop innovative models to address summer learning loss. These models are based around genuine school community partnerships, where the curriculum is co-created and co-delivered by school teachers and community educators. The models also ensure that academics and grade span expectations are embedded into the hands-on activities so that it truly creates engaged learning. We developed this model over the past few years in Rhode Island in 4 Rhode Island cities and towns, and the lessons we learned from the project have and continue to inform the work on the state policy level. One of the cities to engage in the model development work with RIASPA was Providence, and Patrick Do Hon can talk to you more about what this really looks like in practice. Patrick?
I believe Patrick's offline, but we'll hear from him in a minute. So I will just say the following in response to questions asked by Steve Larsoy from Hill Reservation in Westwood, Massachusetts. Yes, we encourage you to share today's slides with as many others as possible once you download them from our website at the end of the week. And then Louise Branoff from the University of Oregon asked if and how one can join a statewide network. I encourage you to go on to statewideafterschoolnetworks.net to find if there is a statewide after-school network in your state, and then you can follow the website links for each network of interest and definitely join that movement. Patrick, are you back online? Can we hear you? Are you unmuted? Okay. Well, we're going to skip some slides and hopefully go back to Patrick to hear about what's going on in Providence, Rhode Island in a few minutes. And I'm going to ask Katie McGrain, Executive Director of the Massachusetts After-School Partnership, to share some highlights of what's going on in terms of state funding in Massachusetts. And then she'll be followed by Chris Smith, Executive Director of Boston After School and Beyond. And Chris will talk about that city's vision and strategy for expanding and evaluating high-quality summer learning programs. Katie?
Thank you, Dara. Thank you for hosting this very important call, and thank you, Jennifer, for an overview of your research in making summer count. I'm very happy to be here and be able to share with today's webinar participants some of the innovative work that's happening in Massachusetts that is particularly helping students make fundamental social, emotional, and academic gains during their summer months. The Massachusetts After-School Partnership is one of 40 statewide after-school networks across the country, and I'm happy to be here with my colleagues from New York and Rhode Island. Our work, we are dedicated to increasing access to and resources for high-quality after-school and out-of-school time programming. And we do this work by supporting strategic public-private partnerships, advocating for increased funding, engaging schools and community-based organizations as well as families in our efforts to better align in-school and out-of-school time learning, to create more opportunities for children that help to close the achievement gap, and of course to share best practices with our policymakers. In Massachusetts, we're seeing innovative city and state summer programming that's reinforcing academic standards, that's motivating children, and demonstrating significant results. given time, I'm just going to give a brief overview of just the statewide initiatives. At the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we're seeing an increased investment in summer out of the 21st Century Community Learning Centers. What we're seeing from that is we're seeing school climate and the culture of school and attitudes towards school changing in children. The After School and Out of School Time Quality Grant is a demonstration of resource grading that Jennifer spoke of early, where each schools and community-based organizations are sharing in the responsibility to provide these enhancement grants, and they and partnerships are required. Out of the Department of Early Education and Care, we're seeing the Summer Literacy Project. That was a project of our funds. We saw the unique hiring practices that, again, Jennifer spoke of, and the investment in high-quality staff that yielded tremendous results and demonstrated academic gains in literacy comprehension. This was targeted at low-performing school districts, as was the summer-only learning vouchers, which speaks to that removing of barriers that Jennifer talked of also. And these summer access learning vouchers also provided a foundation for what became the Summer Learning Project out of Boston, which my colleague Chris Smith is about to share with you. I'm very happy to introduce Chris and his project. The innovative practices in Boston, I think, could share could help to support other cities in Massachusetts as well as cities across the country. So without further ado, Chris Smith of Boston After School and Beyond.
Thanks, Katie, and thanks, Dara. I'd also like to thank Patrick for ceding his time to me. I'm happy to be with you today to share some of our learnings from the Boston Summer Learning Project. And we really aim to finish the sentence that's often said, schools can't do it alone, and no time is that more true than during the summer. And the premise was that we thought schools working together with partners could use the summer months to help students acquire the knowledge, skills, and experiences they'll need to succeed in school, college, and life. And that's codified in the ACT framework. Next slide, please. We attempted to apply this conceptual framework to a real project. And in doing so, we established a vision where we would meet students' needs, both academic and social-emotional, and stimulate their interests with schools and community partners working together, focused on the next grade level. Of all the findings in the Excellent Rand report, the one we were most struck by is that we can actually do something about summer learning loss, so we felt like there's low-hanging fruit. Next slide, please. The next step in this process was to set whole child and partnership measures so that we had a balanced view not only of students but also of programs. And we're leading, of course, with trying to eliminate summer learning loss, looking at English, language arts, and math. But we're also looking at skill development, social-emotional growth, and the actual management of school community partnerships. Next slide, please. When you see these measures, you get a rich and detailed view not only of students, but also students in comparison to their programs and programs in comparison to one another. So we use these measures in order to inform program interventions so that we can personalize the learning experience for students based on their needs and interests, to evaluate our project overall, and to compare outcomes across sites so that we can learn what's working and what needs to be improved. Next slide, please. Our partnership approach is really necessary in order to provide this kind of learning experience that not only addresses academic content and activates the academic content, but that builds skills and stimulates interests. So this summer, we served 435 students from 33 Boston public schools with 15 community partners. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the Boston Opportunity Agenda, which is our Cradle to Career initiative, and the Wallace Foundation for allowing us to create this laboratory for learning. What you see here are major partners, some of whom, like Hale Reservation and Thompson Island Outward Bound, are great natural assets in this community. Others are key service providers who are very prominent in the summer, such as Tenacity, Bell, and the YMCA. But they all worked off one agenda with the same standards and the same measures, each applying their particular strengths to this effort. And finally, we believe that These partnerships are necessary not only to deliver the instruction that will reach students and help develop their skills, create background knowledge, and help them apply what they're learning, but we're also creating stronger partnerships to help strengthen the emerging policy agenda. Which students do we focus on? What standards do we hold them to? How do we organize this through partnerships, and how do we fund it? And this policy agenda is meant to bring clarity to this coordinated school community approach that is intended to finish that sentence, schools can't do it alone. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. We're going to go back to Patrick. His server was down, but we want to give him his time. We have time for everyone. And while we do that, Lauren Sterling from Augusta, Maine, asked if there's any effort to work with organizations like CCSSO and the National Governors Association on the topic of summer learning. We at Wallace partner with CCSSO and NGA, consider them important links to educational leadership, and we're discussing summer learning as a topic with them. Both national organizations have voiced an interest in expanding learning opportunities. So we encourage you on the phone call today to reach out to organizations like this if you consider them representative of your constituents and talk to them about this topic. So now we're going to go to Patrick. Are you there in Providence, Rhode Island?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? All right. Again, I'm Patrick Do Hon. I'm the Director of Expanded Learning here in Providence, where we're jointly with the school district as well as the Providence Afterschool Alliance trying to connect in-school and out-of-school learning. PASA, as Adam had mentioned before, was able to receive funding through the Rhode Island After School Plus Alliance for previous summer's work, but we're excited because for the first time this past year, the school district not only provided, but actually the one who approached PASA to fund a community-driven summer learning experience for middle school youth using funding through the district. Now, the $135,000 for some districts would be very small. It allowed us to only serve about 8% of the rising 7th and 8th graders, less than $700 from students per student that PASA needed to subsidize. But we found that the summer experience was important, and it's something that can be leveraged, that we have leveraged to further develop our citywide expanded learning strategy. For the summer, we built on the success and the attractiveness of the after zones, a nationally recognized model for after-school programming. And we did this in a way that not only got students excited about summer learning, a different type of learning than we do in the after zones, but allowed us to build deeper partnerships with teachers. And the teachers are really the last key group that we need to engage in Providence as part of a citywide public-private partnership for expanded learning. We built joint practice between middle school teachers and community-based STEM educators. They jointly planned and implemented an interdisciplinary curriculum for the summer. And the joint planning really ended up being a great embedded professional development opportunity, with all of the adults reporting that they learned from their peers from across the aisle, as it were, and that they were going to be able to use what they learned both inside and beyond the classroom whenever they returned in the fall. So using the community-based STEM curriculum as the base, 200 youth were split into 10 cohorts with various STEM themes. The adults jointly led instruction during 2 4-hour field experiences each week, and then jointly led targeted math and literacy instruction, where youth applied data collected during their time in the field and created a variety of literacy-based projects related to their experiences. And I can't encourage you strongly enough to go to the PASA website, Providence After School Alliance, mypasa.org, to see 2 outstanding videos that look at the summer and expanded learning work here in Providence. One that looks at the joint practice of adult educators, and one that looks at the experience of the summer through the eyes of youth participants. As far as impacts, we're finishing up a 4-month evaluation that is looking at a number of academic and attitudinal impacts from the summer, and we're going to be sharing those on the PASA website later this year. We've already seen some significant impacts from looking at the original numbers. During the summer, we also measured the quality of the inquiry-based instruction that the co-teachers provided, we piloted a STEM component of the Weichert Center's Youth Program Quality Assessment, and hopefully will receive further development. And we had school teachers reporting through a study that was done by Brown University graduate students high levels of satisfaction with the summer program, so much so that they've been exploring and advocating with the district how that they might be able to employ some of the same methods as part of the district's core curriculum, and they can tie these efforts into professional development as well. The summer has already yielded some critical new investments from the school district and also from others. The district has already initiated planning and committed funding at least at the same level, if not more, for the summer 2012 program. This district has also funded a pilot in one middle school to expand this type of hands-on learning and programming in 3 classes where there's joint instruction driven by the community-based STEM educators and seeing if we might be able to do what we do in the summer as part of a year-round program that happens during what is traditionally the school day. PASA has also begun working with the partners their STEM partners to create an internship for after-zone scholars alumni to come back and work at those organizations and potentially earn high school environmental science credit for the participation. And also the district and PASA are working with some higher education partnerships, especially looking at connections to summer, expanded learning, and STEM learning. Again, while the investment for the district was relatively small per student, it's important to realize that you can leverage whatever funding that you get as a way to deepen the summer as being part of a year-round learning experience. Thank you.
Great. So that is the end of our formal remarks, and we have many questions coming in. So I will do my best to pose them to the appropriate speakers. And I guess I'll get started with Patrick, since he was the last person we just heard from. And there's been such an interesting blending of staffing in Providence, Rhode Island. So Patrick, Carrie Dennison-Cunnion from St. Paul, Minnesota, the Sprockets program, asked, what makes staff highly qualified, both on the CBO and school side?
On the CBO side, there's a lot of work that's been happening with those organizations, the people that they're hiring anyway. But it's also joint professional development or professional development that's been going on, focusing around inquiry-based learning. We adopted with teachers, community-based educators, and also some higher education representatives, a set of principles or elements around inquiry-based learning in informal settings, and have really been using that as a way to prepare and to discuss what's going on. With teachers, we found that it's really the doing of the programming that's critical, because it really is a different type of education. It's something that they're not necessarily used to or using on a daily basis. So it really is the joint practice where they're both developing skill sets together.
Great. Thank you very much, Patrick. So let's see here. We've got a lot of questions related to cost, from the very specifics to the more general. So I'll pose a couple to Jennifer at RAND and then send it over to Katie's way with a follow-up question. So Jennifer, the first question coming from Kate Shem from Charlotte, North Carolina, Freedom School Partners, is the $1,100 to $2,800 cost per child. Is that inclusive of all costs and program costs? So that's one question. And then another really interesting question from Rob Clark of the Family League of Baltimore City said, giving funding challenges today, is a 6-hour, 6-week program really cost effective? And I guess in there is that kind of implied feasibility question.
Right, those are terrific questions. So in terms of the first, the $1,000 to $2,800 figure is inclusive of all programmatic costs. And so we particularly tried hard to account for things like staff time and all sorts of various resource cost factors that included staff, facilities, programmatic staff, the cost of meals, transportation. So those are really fully loaded costs that if a district or private provider were to look at those costs, they may think that those are inflated from what they actually spend in terms of monetary outlay. Now, in terms of the question for cost effectiveness, that's a great question. And this goes to really a question of ideal dosage for summer programming. And here the research is relatively inconclusive at this point. We know that students must attend to achieve gains, and there's a general feeling that more is better. But whether you're thinking about a 4-week versus 6-week program, it's a question. But I'll talk a little bit about what we found in terms of length of day through our studies, and also in terms of number of weeks. For length of day, the reason for extending it beyond for a half hour is really to be able to meet the needs of working families and to improve participation in the program. So that's the rationale for that piece. The idea of 4 versus 6 weeks, what's interesting is that we're currently doing some research in several districts where we evaluated their programs this summer. And what we found was for programs that were running for 4 weeks, there was really a reduction in the amount of instruction that kids received, in part due to startup costs. So we know that when a school year starts, there's sort of the last week of school shot and the first week of school shot. This is teachers are getting ready to gear up the program and then again to gear down. And that same cycle happens in summer programs as well. And so when it comes down to a 4-week program, it ends up that kids are only getting, say, maybe 3 weeks of instruction out of those. And so I think that really pushes us to think that a 5- or 6-week program would be preferable.
Thanks, Jen. And just one more follow-up clarification. Were paraprofessionals used to create cost savings compared to teachers? And that question comes from Gregory Chandler from Hooligan International in Cincinnati, Ohio.
I'm sorry, Dara, could you repeat that one?
Were paraprofessionals used to create cost savings compared to teachers in the districts that are part of your research?
Yes. So paraprofessionals are often used to drive down class size to help promote individualized attention in the classrooms while having a less expensive labor rate than teachers.
Great, thank you. So now I'm going to pose some questions to Katie and Chris in Massachusetts, and I'm going to read through 3 questions, and you guys just answer what you will. Paul Darkin from Revere Public Schools, also in your state, asked if Massachusetts intends to support summer, or how will Massachusetts support summer learning without stimulus dollars, the Recovery Act dollars? So that's one question. Tanya McDonald from Dallas Afterschool Network asked Katie, where does the $1.5 million in funding come from on the state level for summer learning? So lots of folks wondering how Massachusetts is financing expanded learning. And also, Lisa Garbatry from Chicago, Illinois, asked, how did Boston obtain such substantial buy-in from the public? And I guess in the public that also includes how you get a public school district to really take this on. So Katie and then Chris.
So I think a couple of quick responses to that is, in my slide I showed funds that were coming in through our dollars to the Department of Early Education and Care, and those stimulus dollars happen to fund 2 innovative initiatives out of that particular program. What the Department of Early Education and Care, how it differs sometimes in Massachusetts from other states is that we license in Massachusetts up until 13 years old. So birth to 13, anytime those children typically are out of school and they're in an EEC licensed program, they're in an out-of-school time program that's already being funded from the Department of Early Education and Care. The department has also changed its regulations within the past year and a half that each of those licensed programs have to have a curriculum that is intentionally aligned to Massachusetts state framework. And that is, so you're seeing a more intentional linkage to in-school learning in out-of-school time environments, regardless of the 2 particular funding initiatives, our fund. So I think that commitment to community-based organizations partnering with schools and supporting children and closing the achievement gap is already there and existent. And I think that culture exists within that particular department. So we'll continue to see an emphasis and support for that type of learning. In the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, the 21st Century Community Learning Center, as some folks may know, is federal dollars that comes into a state, and those dollars are to also, again, support out-of-school time learning and expanded learning opportunities with intentional connections to academic experiential learning opportunities. And the After-School and Out-of-School Time Quality Grant is an appropriation of the state budget here in Massachusetts, and those dollars we advocate very strongly for. It was introduced about 7 years ago to support after-school and out-of-school time grants. And we see that having a partnership, an intentional partnership between a community-based organization and a school or a school district that's supported by the department as well as by MAP is critical to our children's success and us closing the achievement gap.
And I would just add to that, in Boston,
all the great
we actually do the, sorry, Katie.
Go ahead.
We're looking at the cost per student per hour. So we see a range in our project of between $8 per student hour to about $12 per student hour. Because while we had consistency in evaluation, there's flexibility in implementation. So some programs would run 6 hours a day, others 8, some 4 weeks, others 6 weeks. So that's the way we're comparing costs. I do think that it requires a private commitment to complement the public commitment but even with that combined, it's still cheaper than a school day, a typical school day, or even some of the public reimbursements you see through SES. The way we were able to mobilize support was through the coalition that I mentioned, the Boston Opportunity Agenda. These were the city's leading foundations, together with the mayor and the superintendent of schools, who agreed on one agenda and a set of benchmarks. And one of those benchmarks was on track for graduation. And they recognized summer as the best lever for keeping kids on track for the next grade, which was due in part to the research produced over the years, most recently by RAND. And also, as an intermediary, Boston After School and Beyond had a good sense of who the strong players were during the summer. I mentioned a few of them earlier. They all really stepped up to reach a little bit deeper to serve kids from one particular school. And most of them were turnaround schools. And so with a shared sense of what the need was and excitement about what nonprofits could bring to this agenda, the funders are willing to support it.
Great, thank you. That was really helpful, Chris. I'm going to pose a series of questions back to Jennifer and then have a related question to Caterina about Rochester School. So this next series of questions all relate to evaluation in some form. So Jennifer, I'm going to present a couple to you, and then just if you could speak broadly to the points raised. Fred Franco from the Cost Network in Denver, Colorado asked you, will you be researching the link between dosage and outcomes? Chuck Porter from Stanford School Department in Maine said, how do you measure student improvement? And then Yoon Seung from an unknown organization said, how do you define and measure summer learning loss in your study? So how do you measure loss? How do you measure student achievement? And will you be looking at the relationship between dosage and outcomes?
Okay, thank you. So in terms of the measurement of loss, what the research studies have done is conducted assessments, standardized assessments of students in the spring and then again in the fall to be able to determine where students were when they left school and where they were then when they returned the next year. In terms of measures of improvement, it's interesting because each district has their own method of doing this. In many cases, districts administer pre-post assessments that are aligned to the curriculum that they use. Districts are also looking at their own benchmark assessments to be able to determine whether students are making appropriate gains, particularly those who are involved in summer programming, and whether those gains are larger than they see in terms of students who do not participate in those programs. And in the study that we're working on now, we will be applying sort of more rigorous quasi-experimental design procedures to be able to understand academic achievement, improvements in academic achievement on those benchmark assessments, where we're able to develop a comparison group for a valid comparison group for students who went through the program and those who did not. Now, the last question I jotted down relationships, and now I'm losing what those relationships were. Dara, can you remind me?
Sure, the relationship between outcomes.
Dosage and outcomes. And the answer is yes. I think that this is a critical question to answer, and we hope that some of our future studies can shed some light on this outcome. We do know from prior studies that there is a relationship between dosage and outcome, but thus far we don't know what the ideal dosage is, and we hope to be able to shed some light on that.
Great. Thanks, Jen. So Sarah Link from Boston, Massachusetts, the United Way of Mass Bay and Merrimack Valley, wanted Caterina to clarify the survey tools that Rochester used to measure oral reading and fluency. Did you use the SEO to measure youth engagement? What kind of tools are you using in New York?
Yes, I can speak specifically to the oral reading fluency measures. What we used was the Dibbles assessment, which is a norm referenced assessment for reading curriculum-based measures. As far as student engagement, we use the teacher-child rating scale as a tool during the school year for some of our students, as well as teacher perception data in terms of engagement.
Great, thank you. So now, let's see here. A question back to Katie in Massachusetts. What's the involvement and reaction from teachers' unions around this issue of summer learning? What have you seen in Massachusetts?
Well, I think some of the only issues that we have seen with teachers' unions around additional time has been around the expanded learning time initiative. We're not seeing many in-school educators at this time, or the teachers' unions representing any teachers that are having issues with educating children during the summer. It's often perceived as an additional opportunity to continue to, some young teachers want additional work during the summer, and this is a good way for them. What we did see with the 21st Century program, as well as the Summer Learning Project in Boston, we saw in-school educators spending the summer with their children before they came into the classroom, and developing that relationship with those students prior to the school year really helped to redefine the culture of the classroom and the role of the teacher, and made the teacher much more approachable to families as well as to students. And I think that significantly impacted some of the grades as well.
Great. Thanks, Katie. And Adam, do you have any thoughts? I know Rhode Island is a big union state also, how you deal with this group. And also there were a variety of questions about how you build public will of public legislators.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dara. We haven't, like Massachusetts, we haven't really seen a major union pushback on this issue, especially. I think part of that is that summer is still sort of seen as a separate piece, where it's an opportunity for teachers to take advantage of the summer programming, but it's not necessarily a requirement. So we've really, that has not been something that has been an issue. At the same time, I can say that there are union teachers have been involved in all the programs that we've worked with. Some of them at the teacher rate, and some of them at a reduced rate for the summer months. So it's kind of all over the map. And then in terms of building support at the legislative level, I think that what we've really done is go one by one, trying to identify those legislators that have a connection to summer learning or education specifically. One of our biggest champions here in the state Senate is a high school vice principal in his day job. We've identified other members of the legislature that are engaged in education. One of our other champions is somebody who runs a summer program, and an after-school program. So, finding who those people are that have a tacit knowledge of the issue, and then helping to educate them and to give them the tools they need to help build support among their colleagues has been the way that we've found most successful in the legislature versus sort of a bigger campaign for summer learning.
Great. Thank you so much, Adam. So before we close out, one of the last slides will be a list of the full contact information of all the speakers. And we didn't get to so many questions, and I encourage you all to check out the websites of the organizations that presented today. They have really exciting online content, including videos on what expanded learning looks like, and opinions of teachers and practitioners and families. So go on the state network websites, go on the nonprofit intermediary websites that we'll be listing in a few minutes. I'd like to just pose one last polling question to help all of us consider the knowledge needs of the field. So again, that'll be one last question to you all on the line, and we'll ask you to answer through your polling team. The question is, what is most needed for summer learning opportunities to grow? Do you think that the most important thing is evidence about what works, more funding, increasing awareness, or changing public policy so it's more supportive at the state level? Please select your two highest opportunities, or the two opportunities that you think are most important. Okay, so now let's look at the polling results. Not surprisingly, the thing that we need most is more money. But interestingly, there seems to be an interest in all of these notions that we identified as helping propel the work of summer learning forward, including a real focus on state policy. So I think we were right to include the State Afterschool Network as important messengers and advocates for this really critical topic. There's again, many questions we didn't get to today, some related to curriculum, a lot related to particular funding, some on the role of summer camps, since today we really focused a lot on the role of school-based summer learning programs. For those questions, as well as other related topics, in case you don't know, there's the Summer Changes Everything National Conference hosted by the National Summer Learning Association. It's taking place November 15th to the 16th in San Francisco, California. The authors of Making Summer Count, Jennifer's colleague Catherine Augustine, will be leading sessions there, and you can learn out more about this conference at summerlearning.org. Also, in spring of next year, Wallace will release a new report by RAND that compares the experience of 6 urban school districts operating summer learning programs as part of our demonstration initiative. The report will offer observations about staffing models, attendance strategies, and other implementation lessons. We hope that this report will be interesting to all of you and to other education leaders, because so little information is still available about how schools and school districts can build and operate effective and high-quality summer learning programs. In closing, we'll be sharing the contact information, and again, today's webinar as well as the PowerPoint with the contact information will be available on our website. We will be correcting the deck because Adam Greenman's contact information for the Rhode Island After School Plus Association is not listed correctly, but it will be when we post it on our website. So you can get in contact with REASPA. And that's about it. We encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to download a free copy of Making Summer Count from our website, wallacefoundation.org. And also, please complete the brief survey. That the link will be provided at the end of this call, so you can help us offer more and better webinars in the future. So again, I'd like to thank all of the speakers today for really giving us a lot to think about the state of play of summer learning across our country. And I'd like to thank all of you who participated today as listeners and as for the questions that you posed. It was a really rich discussion. So good day and goodbye. Thank you so much.